Hello, everyone. We are here with Noah Patterson. My name is Ryan Krause.
And I'm Connor Eckel,
I am Noah Patterson.
Senior Loan Officer with Draper and Kramer Mortgage.
And your home financing engineer.
Wow. That's a fancy title.
Well, you got to do something.
All right, so let's start off. Let's explain to our listeners, who are you now?
Yeah, so I am a local guy to Cape May. Lived here, I don't know, maybe 18 years now, 20 years. It's been a while. Moved here from Delaware. Got into lending when I was 16, which for all of you who don't know how to quantify that was 24 years ago. I started with my father saying, hey, son, you want to make some money this weekend? How about you drive us around and pay attention to what I say? Because he did mortgages. Still does. Not necessarily on the lending side, but that's how I sort of got into this. And I drove him around the tri-state area, paid attention to what he said, and did my best not to hit stray cats in mailboxes. When you're 16, you think you know how to drive. Not necessarily the same. So that's kind of how I got started. I jumped right into business school right out of high school. Multiple degrees in business, and then I think I graduated on a Wednesday. I think my father walked into my bedroom on a Thursday and said, when are you coming into the office, son? And I said, well, tomorrow seems like as good a day as any, and the rest is history. So that's kind of how I got into it, was just a family relationship. And then the reason I moved to Cape May was when originally the first company I worked with was Superior Mortgage. Based out of Tuckerton or Little Egg Harbor, depending on how familiar people are with the area. And we were figuring out where was going to be my territory, right? Because, you work with other loan officers, et cetera, and you're not trying to kind of cultivate your business out of somebody else's. Poaching is no. I ended up saying, hey, we don't really have somebody who covers the majority of sort of the Cape May area. My parents were moving down here, so we followed suit, and I started cold calling on offices in full regalia, bow tie, suspenders, and the whole 9 yards. Thankfully, the majority of the Cape May agents in the area were pleasant people and didn't kick a young, green... I don't even think I looked like I was old enough to vote at first. Like, dead serious. Just walked into offices and started introducing myself. Said, hey, how you doing? Here's what I do, and the rest is history. I did actually have a client ask me if I was old enough to vote. Now that I'm thinking about it, I might have been 20, 21, 22, somewhere in there. And one of the agents locally who gave me my first shot, Jim Zeitler, phenomenal human, him and his wife Laura, just great people, amongst a number of others in the area, kind of were the ones that gave me my shot, right? And he said to me, Noah, do us both a favor. Talk to the clients before you meet them in person. He said, you know what you're talking about, you're articulate, the whole 9 yards. But you don't look like you're old enough to vote.
Yeah. So I can relate with you a little bit there.
Right, you definitely got that baby face, kind of. Yeah. It's the situation, right? So this is what 40 looks like for somebody who had a baby face. I'll take it. I'll take it. Right, and so that's kind of how that got started. When I met with the client, at the time it was this pretty sizable purchase. I think it was like a 1.6 purchase, and met with the client, and he did actually ask me. He said. And he was so polite about it in just this unique way. He's like, I don't mean to sound like an absolute a-hole, but are you actually old enough to vote? And I think I remember my answer. I want to say it was something like, not only am I old enough to vote, but really what's important is, am I old enough to correctly handle your loan? And that is unequivocally yes, right? And we got it done. It was just sort of a funny origin story that had to do with the way you look in business, right? Yeah. Especially because my voice doesn't match my face.
I would say you have a deeper voice.
Exactly. Yeah. Most people, when they meet me, they're like, oh, hey, you are not what I expected over the phone, Mr. Patterson. So that's how I got into lending. I think Superior Mortgage, near and dear to my heart. grew up in the industry. I mean, many of the people there I knew since I was tiny, just kicking feet on the floor. You know, I remember when I accidentally shattered the arm, or not the arm, what's it? The hutch that had like TVs, you know, that 1980s furniture, right? It was all glass doors and various shades of like pink pastels. I remember breaking that because I was in the office. I'm saying late. The truth of the matter is it might have been 6 o'clock at night. You know, when you're 6 years old, late is relative. And that was a big to-do where learning to listen when your parents say don't touch things. So Superior was great. They got purchased by another company. Not the best experience. I think I left there at the right time. You know, I think it could have been a lot worse for me. At a certain point in time when a company's not performing for you as a loan officer, because like it starts with us, but we need the support to be able to execute correctly, right? And I think my reputation could have gone to a very bad place had I sat there. But I'm not one of those guys that likes to air out dirty laundry, so we'll keep the company's names off, you know, out of the conversation. And then I joined, at the time, it was First Advantage Mortgage. Always a Draper and Kramer company. Draper and Kramer's 130-year-old property management company out of Chicago, and or Illinois, rather. And they dropped the doing business as, and that's why now we're just Draper and Kramer Mortgage Corp. So, so I've been at 3 companies. I love it. I love it. So that's how I got into the industry.
Sounds like you've always been in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
part of you.
It was. I remember my father, when I graduated from college, he had said to me, I mean, for context, for anybody who's not in the industry, long hours, high stress, great ability for creativity, right? And continual learning. So like if there's always that strive to figure something out or learn something you didn't know, there's a great ability in the industry there. But he had said to me, he said, son, you know, if you're going to choose this as your career, he said, there's going to be, you know, what he called fist pump moments, you know, like, yeah. Right, Tiger sinks that 45-foot putt out of coming out of a sand trap, right? For our golf fans there, but and he said it's not going to be the same as a sports moment, right? Because I shot archery and played other sports when I was younger, but he said you're going to have those moments where you solve something, and it just gives you that thrill. And he was dead on. He said you got to be a little crazy. Anybody who knows me, fact, can confirm. And you got to be willing to work. And whoever came up with this saying, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, it still does work.
It's work, but
it
makes
you
it easier.
Can love it. That's exactly right. People say, do you like it? I say, I love it, even when I hate it. And don't get me wrong, there are days when I hate it.
So with your dad's advice, have you ever had one of those moments, the slam dunk, like, wow, this was great, this stood out in my career? Often. I think most recently, I had 2 really good, a great way to answer that is I'll kind of give you some current wins, right? So recently, last month, I closed 2 transactions that were unique in a way to answer your question. One of them was a scenario where the individual never should have been pre-approved, or at least the way that it was structured initially. It really wasn't accurate. Didn't find that out until he had an accepted offer and was under contract with a very sizable deposit in play, right? And so he came to me. He was recommended by another agent that I work closely with, and or realtor, preferred vernacular and all. And I figured it out in a very unique way that worked. I'm super stoked, right? Super stoked. I was just like, yes. I did it. So we moved through the process. Like anything, we're going to use a military term. Things were fluid. So I needed to refigure it out a few more times. Things that were sort of at play that the individual didn't expect happened. He kind of got blindsided by some stuff that put us in a position to pivot. So the ability to figure that out, get it across the finish line, protect his deposit, it was a huge win. It was an awesome loan to get closed. And then another one was for a couple that we were originally going to go with a VA loan, manufactured home. Can be more difficult to finance. And
things didn't go as planned with regard to the appraisal, so we had to pivot, money change, loan type change, etc. They're in their 50s, and this would have been their first home in, I think, 25 years, right? 30 years maybe. By the end of the transaction, they were living in a truck.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Because there was an issue with their rent situation, and finally being able to pull that together. Same thing against adversity, like figuring out how to tweak things to keep it all in line and within guidelines, right? To get us there. That was a huge one that I mean, that's why we do it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to feel great to be able to help somebody like that.
It was huge. It really, that's why we do what we do. You know, it's, other than the personal wins, like the excitement things, like, that's why we do it. It's about figuring it out to get somebody that home, to change lives. I mean, it really is.
It's a monumental moment.
Huge.
People's lives.
Yeah, huge. So, so I hope that those are some recent examples of which I have a bounty of. You know, we could always circle back to that at any point in time, but you know, don't want to drag into that too much right now.
No, I think that sounds great.
So this is actually something that I personally don't know the difference. What is the difference between a mortgage broker and a loan officer?
So I think the best way to answer that is, ever follow like an if, like not an if then, like something can be this and also that.
Like a square and a rectangle?
Yes, but just because it's this doesn't mean it's that kind of thing, right? So brokers, I think we'll start there. Mortgage brokers, typically, and you know, I don't want to sort of dive too deep into that because it's sort of like, where's Central Jersey? Well, it depends on where you live in a state. So I, you know, I don't want to get into the finite details between that, but in essence, a mortgage broker is an intermediary, right? They are the ones that are getting the business. They're then pre-qualifying the consumers or pre-approving and then finding a home for that loan. And when I say finding a home, they are then brokering it to a lender, and that lender is the one actually bringing the money to the table to fund the transaction, right? So the broker's really that kind of intermediary, but they're the face of the transaction, they're the head of the show, the whole 9 yards, right? It's just where the money's coming from. So I do a lot of broker transactions, even though I am not a mortgage broker per se, but we'll circle back to that in a minute. So that's kind of the basic example of a broker. A lender or someone like myself, for the majority of our loans that we close, we're processing them, closing them, underwriting them, all sort of in-house, and funding them with our money, whether that's you know, business funds or warehouse lines of credit, things like that. It's Draper and Kramer funding the transaction. The wire's coming from us. That's really the biggest difference. I think there's pros and cons to each. I think that could be a debate, you know, especially because a lot of it's the individual, right? It's not like a broker is better than a loan officer or a loan officer is better than a broker. A lot of it's just who you're working with, you know? I had mentioned I do a lot of brokered loans, more for sort of your unique products, like qualifying on your rent roll or you're self-employed. So we're doing bank statements for a review on deposits or a profit and loss. Like for me, Draper and Kramer is not funding that. I'm brokering that to, you know, a private investor that's usually backed by a hedge fund or an insurance company or private equity firm, something like that. So I do a lot of that business. At the end of the day, that's me spearheading the transaction, right?
Right.
And you get that same experience. Really where I see the struggles in those is when that teamwork between the lender and the broker doesn't function correctly because it's not their organization that's underwriting, right? So they kind of have to have that. Ever hear the saying, hey, there's multiple chefs in the kitchen?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of applicable in that example, right? So that's sort of the difference is one of them is originating and funding the transaction. The other is brokering it and originating it, but having it funded by an external entity. This is a very low-level kind of comparison. So there's no better or worse between the two. It's just different ways to operate. So
I like the definition you just gave. It helped me understand a little bit more, and Connor, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I love it. I aim to please. And if there's something, listen, I mean, in our industry, you know, we're used to terms like LOX, letter of explanation, or VOE, verification of employment. So if I just kind of fall into work mode and end up firing terms out or saying something, just be like, hey, no, can we back up a minute? You know, let's revisit that. What is that?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that kind of gave shed some light on there. And there's all sorts of different designations, RLOs, MLOs. It's just different licensing purposes. Sometimes it's whether you work for like a bank, they're considered an exempt entity for certain loan originating licensing requirements. You know, so a lot of it's really the individual you work for, and does the company that they work for allow them and facilitate them crushing it for you. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, no matter what loan officer you're working with.
Right. So. And in addition to that, it sounds like there could be a lot of creativity that needs to be completed, throughout a transaction.
Oh yeah. I mean, there is no sort of set it and forget it. It's not we're going to start here and that's that. No, it's okay. Well, we validated this. Well, what's this large deposit? Oh, well, I didn't think you needed to know that. Oh, no, you wouldn't, and I wouldn't have known to ask about it until I saw your bank statements, right? That's federal legal tender. I mean, this may sound silly, but at a basic level, people say, "What's that?" And I was like, "Well, it's to make sure you're not selling meth on the street." Yeah. And then laundering that right through you buying a home. I mean, it's ill-gotten gains. It's federal legal tender. So there's a lot of stuff. That kind of comes in. So it's very fluid whether you're saying, oh, this did work, now it doesn't, how do we make it work again, right? Or I had enough money to close and then there was a random rainstorm and then I drove through a puddle heading down, Rio Grande Boulevard and my transmission, boom, $5,000 new transmission. They don't have enough money, right? So yeah, you are constantly on the lookout, and I think a lot of the best loan officers are the ones that sort of figure out what's the best move and then are constantly thinking about what could go wrong, what could be an issue, what solutions do I have for that, and in many instances I've found just you bring it to the forefront, you talk to people about it, you say, hey, here's what I see may be a concern, right? Let's dialogue about this, let's plan to do this, but if we need to, I need you to be ready to engage this other game plan. It's one of my favorite things about the industry is the complete sort of ability for abstract thinking.
Problem solving.
Yes, it's one of my favorite aspects.
Very rarely does a deal go exactly how you plan it.
Very rarely. Yeah, I had one the other day. It was so vanilla. It was like a pay stub, a checking, a savings, and they've been at their job for 8 years, and they have 3 credit cards, and they're buying a primary house, and they lived with mom before that.
You're almost scared. What's coming?
No, yeah, not even joking. That is it. It's like, when's the shoe gonna drop? I mean, because you live in that sort of critical thinking mode. Mm-hmm. You're just expecting something to happen, and then when it closes in 3 weeks, and there was not a single hurdle, and you're like,
wow, it's amazing.
The great white buffalo. They do exist, right? Yeah. So yeah, every scenario is different. And that's, if I'm being honest, that is, I'm going to transition just a little bit, not to steer off topic, but that one piece that's just that unique dynamic, every scenario is different. I think that is one of the biggest takeaways for the consumer. The reason I say that is because in many instances, you may get a call and it says, oh, well, my friend or my mother or my sister, right, just did X, and this is what they got. And there's a lot of information, but there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. And so some of what we do is education, right? We have to educate the consumers because I could write 3 loans, all, let's say, $500,000 sales price, 30% down, 30-year fixed, just vanilla. Every single one of those, even if they were the same loan on the same property, is going to be different because the consumer financials are different, right? So that's part of it. That actually leads me into something that I really wanted to say that I thought was unique. I'll hit it later on, but it has to do with sort of a mentality that I found to be very good. SEP, sell, educate, and protect. So, but we'll hit that a little bit later on. We're just gonna give you all a little taste there and let you sit on that and see what you think SEP stands for, in a practical perspective. So,
all right. Well, let's start with maybe informing somebody that's never bought a home? Because this market, there's a lot of people that are getting older and older and still haven't hopped into the market.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain what that process would look like? They pick up the phone and they call you tomorrow and say, I want to look at a house.
Absolutely.
What's the next step?
So first thing we do is I always like to have a conversation first, right? You know, some instances there are some clients that are working with an agent that just say, hey, reach out to Noah. They forward them, you know, my mobile app link or my web link to download, and we're off to the races. But in most instances, that starts with, like you said, they pick up the phone, they call me, and we don't jump right into the, here's what we do. It's a, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me about what you're trying to do, right? And that helps put me in the right frame of mind for when we're going through those next steps. I've already sort of got the gears turning. And it also, in my experience, then leads to additional lines of questioning, like, oh, well, what about this or what about that? And I like to take very detailed notes. You know, I think our follow-up system and lead capture is all very strong. So that step
I can vouch for that.
You can, yeah. So a lot of that is you get to know somebody. The other reason I think that conversation is important, a home purchase is a massive financial move for somebody in their life, right? The more comfortable they are with me, the easier it's going to be to work together. I mean, just like we were speaking about earlier, it doesn't always go as planned. Some things we were aware of and then they come to play and we got to pivot. Some things come out of left field. Being in it together and having that relationship, in my opinion, is paramount, not just for clients and loan officers, but for the agents we work with, our referral partners, right? You know, that's one of my biggest platforms is the more you know somebody, the easier it is to work together, the easier it is to pick up the phone and just have that candid conversation. Now, my spidey sense is going off. What's up? You know, what about this? What about that? And we're like, all right, let's dialogue on that, right? And they're willing to have it. And it in some instances, some people take being confrontational as I don't really know if I'm going to grab the right word here. Sort of like that alpha perspective, right? I think a lot of people take an alpha perspective or an alpha mentality and misconstrue it to be confrontational. No. Most of the alphas you probably don't even realize are alphas because they don't need other people to know they are, right? So some people approach those conversations that way when they don't need to be. It's let's talk. So I think it starts with the conversation, right? It starts with that let's talk, let's get some flavor. Let me give you some expectations because I want to build a relationship. We live in a world where technology, it's just in your face, blah, blah, blah mortgage, blah, blah, blah mortgage, apply here, apply there, you know, and then add to the scams, right? So you build that relationship, you have the call. I introduce them to my team. I tell them, listen, you're going to deal with me and my team, start to finish. Myself, my team member, Alyssa, she's my right-hand gal, and then their loan processor, Bill Stevens, right? Like, that's it. So I prep them for the next steps. From there, once we know we're situated, it's two different ways to complete an application. I need to use a housing pun. I need a foundation of information.
There you go.
You know, to get that baseline, right? Couple different ways we can do that. Jump out on my website, you know, where you say, hey, no, I'm on the go. I'm good with technology. Hey, let me send you my mobile app link. You download it right through your app store. Off to the races you go. Secured account. Get me the information. It's all editable. You know what I mean? Just let's get it to me so we can have that next step. Once we get that, boom, application's in. That's where Alyssa tags in. Boom, boom, boom. Prepping it for me, right? You know, she really has been paramount to helping me drive my success because it allows me to keep my attention on the sales side where it needs to be and then navigating sort of problem solving, et cetera, as needed.
What kind of information would somebody that's going to be looking to purchase a home, what should they have ready?
So it is going to be different for everybody to some degree. But if you were to just say income, assets, and expenses, that, in a nutshell, is a low level, what am I going to ask you for, right? It's where do you work? How much do you make? How are you paid? Hourly salary? Do you get bonuses? Do you get overrides? You know, do you have like restricted stock units, right? I mean, everybody's income's a little different, right? So we're going to hit the income. Maybe you got Social Security, disability, home health care. You know what I mean? There's all sorts of stuff there. Income, assets, what do you got in the bank? Or where can you get money from? Right? Is mom and dad willing to help? Do you know, I mean, well, I got Uncle Moneybags. I mean, listen, we all wish we knew an Uncle Moneybags.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, I was jesting with a client of mine, very well heeled, and I said, listen, you're looking to adopt, I can emancipate right now. You know, so assets is what it is, and where it's coming from, because sometimes people say, oh, well, I got it in a safety deposit box. Well, if I can't prove it, just like we were saying earlier, legal tender, if I can't prove where it came from, you can't use it, right? Yeah. So that's why we have those conversations, to make sure not only are we getting actual exact information, but we're preparing for what happens after that. Now you're in the process, blah, blah. Can you imagine that? You're mid-loan process and somebody says, oh, I got 180 grand. Oh, yeah, what accounts it from? Safety deposit box. Boom, facepalm, right?
Which, those are pretty personal questions, which, again, that you being able to know them and really talk to them really helps, because, I mean, giving your income and everything to a random person over the phone, that's a little scary.
Again, that's why you start with the call, right?
It seems like the more a client communicates with you, the more seamless the transaction may be.
Usually, yeah.
The more you can get out in the air before it's down the road and you're finding about it then.
Correct, yeah. I mean, that's usually it, right? So to kind of nail all of this, it's initial intro call, application submission, data validation, that's another phone call with me. You know, what do we need? Let me get your pay stubs, blah, 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 right? All of that, then we say, hey, you might not have a property of mine. Let's designate one. We're going to use that as our benchmark. From there, we build out the file, structure it, and this is the most important part. And make sure that not only does it work for me, hey, it works for the guidelines, etc., does it really work for them? You know, because just because I can qualify somebody for it doesn't mean it's the move, you know? Yeah. Like a consumer knows their budget better than anybody else, right? But even better than I can articulate from seeing basically all of their financials, right? Yeah. They know. So it's comfort level. The comfort, the communication, it's a team effort, right? I mean, it's a team effort, you know, so.
Which I can say, your team is great.
They are awesome. I am blessed to have got some rock stars with me. It certainly helps me do what I do well. So, and that's it. Like, that's kind of the baseline, right? From there, you're finding the home. I'm issuing offer specific pre-approvals, which I like to look at every house you want to offer on. Taxes might be different. I mean, let's look at our area. You can find two houses, the same price point. Are they upper? Are they middle? Are they lower? They're going to have taxes that could be thousands of dollars apart for the same price point. So it's always making sure I'm not just being lazy, shooting off a pre-approval. Yeah, you're good. Oh, crap. Those taxes are 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
So it's that thing. You get under process, and then we get off to the races, which is a whole different part. But that, to answer your initial question, which is how we got on this train, conversation, app submission, documentation and validation, finding the home. That's sort of your initial salvo. You know, and that can be very quick. I mean, listen, I've had Noah, I found a home. I need a pre-approval. All right, what are we talking about? Best and final in 3 hours. All right, let's get to work. You know.
Yeah.
Yes, that knuckle crack was on purpose.
What was the longest transaction you've ever worked on?
New construction in the Pinelands. 2 years, 11 months, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's because some of the permits were very lengthy to get through. So there wasn't necessarily me taking action that whole time, but from the time that we started it to the finish, that's what it was. The big holdup was really the permits. Pinelands Commission, they're very thorough to make sure that when they issue those permits, they're making sure they're issuing them to the right people for the right projects. Right?
Did you ever think it may not close?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that shot, but it's like anything, the moment you sort of let doubt in, you're not able to operate at 100%. So, yeah. The way I look at it is there's plenty of times the transaction might not work. Mm-hmm. You just don't accept it as a reality until it's the only reality, right? I mean,
I like that.
You just operate creating the reality you want until there is no other alternative. Yeah, that's right. Multiverse. So yeah, there's that. But I will tell you an interesting one. Some clients, and this I think is important too, how long you stay in touch. Because they're not always going to find a home that day, that week, that month, that year, that decade. True story. 11 and some odd years. One of my clients, from the time I first spoke to him to the time we did his actual loan, it was between 11 and 12 years.
That's impressive.
Talk about long term.
Yeah, we stayed in touch. That's why I tell everybody, listen, I'm not going anywhere. We'll stay in touch. We'll keep you. I mean, how many times did you get that? Hey, how's the house hunt? Here's what the market rates are, right? Like, just stay in touch. You don't need to pressure people. They know you exist. You just insight and mind, right? So it can be short, it can be long, and everything in between.
So a big thing in the news over the past couple of years has been interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk a little bit about your thoughts on buying now, even though a lot of the news may say not to?
Yeah. I mean, I think the truth of the matter is everybody's scenario is different. So if you're making your decisions based on what the news says, take stock and say, what are my goals, right? If your lease is expiring and you don't know where you're going to live, rates be damned. It's a great time to entertain buying them. Doesn't mean you have to. It's a great time to look at it, right?
Can't hurt to look.
No, and sometimes people have to. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. Maybe, maybe their landlord says, hey, I'm selling the house. You got to go, right? They give them notice. Now they either have to rent or have to buy. Sometimes it's maybe you have to do a loan because I've got to buy out my ex. I did not intend on getting divorced. I'm pretty sure no one enters the sanctity of marriage with that on their to-do list. But it's life. It happens, right? So sometimes you have to. But if you can avoid it. So I say, first, what do you want to do? What's your timeline, right? You can always marry the house and date the rate. It's such
I love that saying,
but it's so accurate, right? It's true. Because, you can never guarantee a refinance, right? Mm-hmm. But you can say, here's what the data tells me. Here's what the experts are saying. There's a good likelihood they're in their roles in national publications and recognized for their expertise. There's a good shot this actually comes to pass, right? Mm-hmm. So I think anybody who wants to buy, just buy. Like, as long as you're comfortable with what you're doing, just buy. If the house checks your boxes, just go for it. Especially some people, they say, oh, well, in an under-appraisal scenario, which we can touch on that sort of dynamic later on. Say, oh, well, it under-appraised. Do you still want the house? I'm like, well, you tell me. Value is only relative if you're going to sell it immediately, right? Like, if it checks your boxes, it meets your needs, value is relative. It might be worth that to you. All an appraisal does is validate the value of the house given the current recent sales. Mm-hmm. Value is relative, right? Obviously, I need it to make value. But even that's why, there's gap situations and blah, 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 blah. That's it. I think, yes, if you want to buy. Don't wait. How many people, if you actually ask the question, how many people are willing to admit their faults? How many people are willing to admit their missed opportunities? Not many.
Not many.
It's an ego hit, right?
Yeah.
How many people? You actually started asking. So when you were waiting for that bottom of the barrel rate, did you get it?
Did it work out?
Right? There's going to be some, there's no doubt. But the vast majority, you rarely find the pendulum exactly in the center, right? So just buy the house, get your house, live your dream, make your memories, right? Every year that goes by, you're not getting younger. I'm not getting younger, And the truth of the matter is, it's all relative. I do believe rates are going to continue to come down, right? I think if I go back and think through, I want to say Fannie Mae, September 22. I think it was September 22. Fannie Mae made a statement that they were like, oh yeah, rates are going to be like 4.5 like next year. Yeah, you were wrong. They amended that not long after that. They said, oh, well, we think they're going to be like 5.5. It was the moving target, right? Nobody actually knows. It's all speculation. That's why it's called speculation, right? So we go back a couple years, rates spiked. Truth of the matter is they're not even bad rates. We've just been spoiled for the last, 14 years, right? They're really in line. Ooh, see, the phone never stops ringing.
Call Noah Patterson today.
That's right. Call me today.
What's your cell phone?
302-379-2359.
There you go.
Yeah, now you watch how many weird subscriptions I'm going to be on tomorrow. I'm going to get like a butcher box and, like what is Hello Fresh. I'm just going to get stuff delivered. I didn't order this.
If you're not already famous, you may get famous.
I mean, famous, infamous, they're like kissing cousins. But yeah, so pardon the interruption, folks. I should actually have turned that ringer off in advance. I think rates are what the analysts really are saying to kind of bring the answer quick. Ooh, little.
You're right there.
Sorry about that.
Banger on the noggin. we folly on the play. Recently, the head economist for NAR, I think we're going to fast forward to this past September, 23. The head economist for NAR, as National Association of Realtors, for anyone who didn't know the context there, as well as a number of other analysts, made a statement where they said we expect rates to drop in the fourth quarter of 23 and then slowly decline through 24, ultimately to settle in the mid-fives in the 25 calendar year. At the time, I'm sure you've heard the saying, the boy who cried wolf. I'm like, yeah, right. I'll believe it when I see it, guys. Uh-huh. It was like the weatherman. You can be wrong like all the time and still have a job. But it actually happened. Like that actually is what happened. So I started seeing, I want to say maybe mid-December, rates started dropping. It was a pretty hefty drop. Rates dropped like 0.75%. It was a pretty chunky drop.
2 weeks after I bought my house.
Marry the house, date the rate.
Date the rate.
That's right. I'm sure, give it time, you'll be on the refi bandwagon as well.
But I got in.
It's exactly right. You found the house that checked your boxes, you were comfortable with, and you got in. Right? You marry the house. That's exactly it. So that's what I'm thinking. I think the last 3 weeks have really started to line up with what the economists are saying. So I do think we're going to see the slow burn. The Fed meeting yesterday was good for interest rates. Sort of the bond and stock market reactions were really well. Plus where things are poised in the bond markets and what like mortgage-backed securities are trading at. There was I'm going to use this term relative, air quotes, if you will. It was a good mortgage auction yesterday as well, which was positive for rate pricing. So that trend continues, right? They keep continuing the slow burn. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It's going to happen, and we'll see rates in the fives. Hey, listen, I want fours. Give me fours. I'm gonna be like the Oprah of mortgages, and you get a loan, and you get a loan, right? So yeah, I think they're going to keep coming down. I don't know how quick it's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
I think it's important for people to realize, too, that as they continue to go down, there's going to be more and more buyers.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's going to turn into a feeding frenzy. It happens every time. I mean, I've lived through a similar cycle as this. Not exactly, but a similar cycle a few times. That's exactly what happens. It turns into a feeding frenzy. And that, like, I was talking to somebody recently, and I told him, I said, listen, it's a seller's market presently because of the limited inventory. I think it's going to continue to be a seller's market because of the buyer pool that's going to jump in, right? You got no inventory because why is a landlord going to sell a house to do his buy up, get a property that's going to make more money when his payment doubles and triples because of the rates and his ROI is not there? And before you know it, he's like, well, what's the point? I'm spending money on closing costs. I got to deal with the rigmarole. I'm just going to keep the house I have. Yeah. When rates come down, you're going to start to see those sales happen. You're going to see this massive buyer pool, right? And when I say massive, it's massive. Like I have over 100 pre-approved buyers. I mean, listen, it could be, I'm talking over the last few years, right? That have all been waiting for rates and inventory. So it's gonna happen, right? I mean, you've all seen Shark Week. Use your imagination, and instead of the nice, cute baby seal, just replace that with a house. And instead of sharks, you replace that with buyers. So yeah, I don't think you should wait. I mean, unless there's a financial reason, find the dream home, buy the dream home, stay in touch. I talk to financial planners, I talk to accountants. So sometimes this game plan isn't just me, right? Like I'm talking to all of them to make sure we meet those goals. So yeah, I think people should buy. I think rates are going to continue to come down. I think you're going to see more inventory listings. I think you're going to see a larger buyer population jump into the market, which is then going to drive overprice offers. It's going to drive bidding wars.
And then you're going to have to settle for a house that you
correct
don't want to marry.
That's exactly right. And you're in the same boat. You're just having even more stress because you were fighting off 20 other people to get there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even now on Abby and my house, we had 8 or 9 other offers.
Yeah, I've seen it recently. In the last 3 weeks, I've had 8 clients lose to multiple. I don't mean use multiple. Could have been 2. Could have been 20. Right. Yeah. I did have one last year. I think the agent told me there was 23 offers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's
23 and 23, baby. I was like, did you get it? They said no. I was like, well, screw those other 22.
Listen, it wasn't meant to be.
They weren't working with me. I mean, yeah. Which is funny. I did have a client. I actually won a deal once because an agent referred me a person selling a home, right? Referred me selling a house. He was up in the air on who he was going to use. So I said, you just handle it, right? I mean, it is what it is. You just respect their choices, right? It's capitalism, I mean, there's nothing wrong with fighting for what you eat. If I got to compete against a few other guys, gals, so be it, Yeah. He called me after he accepted an offer on his place, and he says, well, shit, I guess what they say is true. I said, so you realize that 4 of those 7 pre-approvals were clients that I pre-approved? He's like, yeah. It's not a regular occurrence. Usually, every once in a while, I'll get like 2 or 3. But 4 clients that I pre-approved offering in the same house at once, that was unique.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Wow. So Noah, can we go back to this SCP acronym?
Oh yeah. So sell, educate, and protect. Just to remind everybody, that's what I said then. What do you guys think? I mean, you're in real estate. Like if you were selling, I think that's clear. You're selling homes.
Yeah.
But you're not only selling homes, you're selling yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what loan officers do. I sell myself daily. When you're 100% commission, no safety net, if you're not doing what you need to do, you're not eating, right? You're not feeding your family. In my case, I'm not feeding my fresh off the boat 14-month-old baby, who I am loving to death.
It's a good age.
So cute. I see friends that have kids that are a hair older, and I'm just like, oh crap, we're gonna get there. But yeah, so I'm loving it. But yeah, so you sell. Right? When you're selling, you're selling your loan programs. You're selling yourself as an individual, your ability to execute, your ability to communicate. Us having this podcast is a selling activity, right? There's a lot of the sales that is not just the transaction, right? That's how you generate your success, Educate. You educate your consumers. That's what most people would think, right? You educate your consumers. Hot Pockets are done. No Hot Pockets, I wish. Or Bagel Bites. Oh, baby.
Bagel Bites.
I love them.
I have those in my freezer.
Yes, man, me too. That's my go-to. My go-to. I stopped working at 10 and my wife's already asleep. Bagel Bites, baby.
Yeah. Yep. I even do like a little bit of ranch on top.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Why Connor's fixing the microwave. Not actually a microwave, everyone. I'm having a little fun at his expense. When I was younger, Elio's Pizza, ranch dressing, and peanuts. I don't know. It was weird. I don't do it. But at the time, it was ranch, Elio's, and peanuts. You at least get the ranch. You were the first person since I was probably in 5th grade that I know that does ranch in their pizza sometimes. So.
Oh, I love it. I don't know if I can agree with the peanuts.
It's not for everybody.
No.
If I'm being honest, I haven't done that since 5th grade. So I don't even know if I'd like it now.
I can agree with that. I can go for some ranch on just about anything.
It's wild. It's wild. It's just one of those things. The sweet and the savory sort of just works.
It doesn't make anything worse.
That's exactly.
Might not make it better, but it doesn't make it worse.
It's the value proposition. There's no negative. It's a neutral or a positive. Right? But yeah, so selling. You're selling yourself. You're selling your activity. You're selling your services. There's a lot of your selling that goes into the everyday, right? You're educating your consumers. Again, I want to have an educated consumer because we live in that world of technology I mentioned earlier, right? hear from everybody, their friends, their family. There's a lot of information that is either inaccurate or partially accurate, which you then need to expand on. So you educate your consumers, but you educate yourself as well, right? You additional trainings, additional certifications. Like I'm licensed in, numerous states.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, presently I'm licensed in 11 states.
Wow.
Yeah, Jersey, New York down to Florida and out to Kentucky. And it's one of those things where I'm educating myself, right? I mean, that started, by the way, Cape May. You pull out a sextant, you draw a circle around Cape May, you got water on 3 sides. Well, if you want to reach a certain level of success and your local market just has, it's limited. We get water. I mean, I'm not writing loans for Nemo, right? Don't get me wrong. If I could, I'd try. Trust me. You give me a loan that I can use, I will try to write it. I am fearless with that. If I find an option, I am gonna try to write it because that's why they exist, right? Yeah. So you're constantly educating not only your consumers, you're educating yourself, right, to better do what you do, and you're educating your referral partners too. Because the truth of the matter is, as much as I know about real estate, I'm not a realtor. I'm not an expert in that side of the transaction, right? And same thing with many realtors or insurance. Like some of that is just educating. Oh, hey, here's how that works. I got a text the other day about the ability to show something on the final closing disclosure, right? They're saying, hey, seller has this item paid for. Is that okay? I said, absolutely. Work's already done. It doesn't impact my buyer thing. Like, we're good. Yeah. That was an educational moment. And that was just a text. So it never stops, right? Whether, educating in all phases is fantastic, P, protect. What do you guys think protect means?
Protect yourself or protect the client?
Guidelines.
Does it have to be an or?
No, I guess both.
Exactly. When you're protecting everyone in the transaction. Sometimes it could be a simple follow-up email. Hey guys, thanks for the call. I'll keep an eye out for the 3 items we discussed, right? You're protecting yourself. You sent the follow-up. Nobody can say you didn't send it, right? You protect your consumers by getting your loan done. Open communication. We mentioned earlier, things don't always go as planned, right? I get no problem talking. Agents know if they call me, they're going to get a call back or they're going to get me on the phone. Like, even when things are rough, you never dodge a call. Part of that is protecting the transaction. Because if everybody's in the loop and everybody's locking arms together, what are you doing? You're protecting the sanctity of closing. Can we get there? Yes. Right? So there's so much protection in multiple levels. So you're selling, you're educating, you're protecting, and some of that's the loans you can't do. Right? Truth be told, hand to God, you get the calls or somebody's saying, oh, we're going to do this. And your spidey sense is going off. But are you really going to live in it? Well, it's like, well, yeah, we're not committing residency fraud, bro. The FBI handles that shit. That is a bear nobody wants to play.
Yeah, it's pretty serious.
Right. That's obviously an extreme example. That's why if you keep yourself beyond reproach, you never have to worry about it. Right? But protecting. You know what I mean? Yeah. So sometimes the no is the protection. So that was something that I was taught a very long time ago. Sell, educate, and protect in all aspects of your life and your business, and it will never hurt you to do so. Yeah. So it's a little, we're going to say circa Matt Patterson, 2006.
Well, going back to the first word, selling yourself, right? I think the first time I even met you, very briefly, you brought in Eagle shirts.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
That was one of the, I do remember that, and that's how I said to Connor, I did meet him once because he brought me an Eagles t-shirt.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, that was exactly that was selling. I get a lot of my merch from Keltex locally. I think they're in Seaville. Awesome place. Michael Hagan up there, just a rock star. As a matter of fact, that is where this t-shirt came from. This is me trying to design something, which we'll touch on that another time. But yeah, so they were running a special. Eagles, Super Bowl, go Birds, right?
Yeah. Go Birds.
And listen, if I'm the man in my local marketplace, how could I be that guy if I'm not buying a whole mess of Noah Patterson branded Eagles shirts and giving them away for free at, breweries and real estate offices. Yeah.
I love that.
Makes sense.
And at the Coast Guard Festival, I loved the boats and loans.
Boats and loans.
I love that.
Loans. Yeah, the funny thing about that one is that was a pop culture reference. Obviously, anybody who understands and loans or boats, you'll get there. I ran it by somebody and they were like, but we don't offer boat financing. And I was just like, don't worry about it.
Just forget it.
Just don't worry about it. It's a pop culture reference. If it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. You wouldn't have asked for one of these shirts anyway. Trust me. That was such a huge hit. I think I had like 300 or 400 of those shirts done. We had people coming up and asking to buy them.
I love mine.
Right? And
I love it.
It feels great. Like, yeah, I funny enough, I almost wore that shirt. Or had that in my truck. But yeah, boats and loans. It was a Coast Guard festival, and it was just appropriate, right? I do a lot of VA loans locally because of the Coast Guard base, and as a result of primary change of station, right? They go nationwide. So I've got a very large veteran buyer and refinance client pool. So it was just perfect. And come on, anybody who's in the military is like boats and loans. Oh my God, yes.
Next time you stop by to Satnick Real Estate, you gotta bring us a few.
I need to buy more. I ran out. Not even kidding. I had people calling me after the event saying, hey, such and such got one of these shirts. You got any left? I was like, next year. So we're doing it again this year.
We'll be there as well.
I will have a new run done. I'm going to play with design a little bit, but we'll get some more of that good pop culture. I'm actually going to try to see if I can figure out some other ways to maybe do that, maybe a different shtick. So we'll see. So, yeah. So always selling, right?
Always selling. Whether it's the boats and loans, Eagle shirts, going around the offices.
My handy dandy fold out blankets.
It's a good one.
Look at that.
Dude, those things are awesome. I tell you what. I love my coffee, folks. I just hit the desk a little hard. So these things are great. It's great.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's just a little fold out blanket.
Yeah.
I keep so many of these in my car.
That's perfect for your card.
It's
uptight and then.
Yeah, it's awesome. What I do is I love that I forget that I have them in my car, because anytime you're driving to Philly, that turnaround on 95, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have had less than fortunate life circumstances that are, kind of waiting on the corners there. So anytime I know I'm going, I always try to big, the Lord's blessed me, so you got to pay for it, right? So I'll just bring I swear to God, they are so Noah Pattersoned out right now. I guarantee, I must have 40 blankets that I've just given out on that turnaround, and bags with I'd stop at Wawa and just throw it all in a tote, water bottles, a whole day. So my merch is heavily distributed in the 95 turnaround outside.
I'll have to keep my eye out.
Yeah. I don't do it for that reason, other than it's the right thing to do. But it's comical. So yeah, I get a lot of my merch there. So.
That's really cool.
Yeah. This that we were talking about earlier, this shirt that. For anybody who doesn't know, kind of my thing is a bow tie, right? It's been a bow tie for years, It's he's the bow tie guy. It was almost like a bat mask, right? Oh, I'm not even kidding. If I'd walk into a real estate office without the bow tie on, oh, hey, how can we help you? Oh, Noah, where's your bow tie? It was like that. They had to double take because they weren't used to seeing me without a bow tie, which is also comical, because then around town, when I'm usually very dressed up or dressed down. And when I dress down, I'm very casual. People won't recognize me because I'm not wearing a bow tie. So, and we've sort of shifted away from that. But my idea was, it's kind of my thing. People know me for it. I'm walking the dog in town and came like, Noah, where's your bow tie? I'm like, bro, it's 90. What do you think? I'm not buttoned up to the top button with the bow tie on. Come on, I'd sweat to death. So that's where this came from, right?
I thought that was relaxed. A bow when you walked in. I really wasn't sure though.
Yeah, and that's an N and that's a P. So
that is clever.
Work in progress. But this is kind of the first go. So we're gonna keep running that avenue. My tattoo artist, He's like, hey, I met him in Atlantic City just to go out for breakfast when he was in town in November, and he said, oh, send me the logo. I'll mess around with it, so we'll see where it goes. I am not artistically inclined.
So why not a regular tie?
It happened. It just happened. Yeah. I was young, and I wanted to stick out, if I'm being honest. I wanted to be remembered visually, right? Visually. And that was it. I tried suspenders. Oh, I look so Poindexter-y. Like I'm like a thin frame, like a short guy. Oh, suspenders was a bad idea. Especially when I didn't know any better in my youth. I wore suspenders and a belt. Somebody came up to me and said, oh, do you know what you're wearing? I said, yeah, I got suspenders and belt. He said, no. Do you know what that's called? I was like, what do you mean? He said, yeah, the suspenders and belt. You know what that look is called? I said, no, educate. And I'm thinking, like, I'm looking up to, somebody that I admired, right? That I'm expecting this just glorious mountain of useful information. Confused. Confused was what he said the name of the look was. I said, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, the suspenders hold your pants up. The belt holds your pants up. What are you doing?
What are we doing here?
Yeah, so that was the moment I realized suspenders was not for me. So that's honestly just how it happened. I just looked at me deciding how I wanted to dress at that point in time and picking something that was professional that sort of stuck out. And that's how the bow tie happened. If I'm being honest, I also don't think I was really good at tying ties at the time. Listen, tying a bow tie, you're thinking to yourself, Noah, really? You pick a bow tie when you can't tie a tie? You're not wrong. I realized this after the fact when I spent 4 hours figuring out how to tie a bow tie the first time. I mean, now I can do it, without a mirror, but that's just like anything. It's practice. That was it. It was literally just, I picked something and swung for the fences. So here we are.
If you're going to do it, you got to overdo it.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, go big or go home, right? So that's kind of how the bow tie happened. Yeah, I mean, Todd always used to razz me. Yeah, it was always. I actually mentioned it when I walked in because I was wearing that sort of the pullover, nice looking sweater, and I actually literally told this story like 40 minutes ago. When I was always walking into the Satnick years ago, I was always dressed up, like with the bow tie. That was in my mind. That was professional, right? And one day, I think I was wearing a cardigan. I think I was at the office for like a closing or something, and Todd was like, so you can dress down, or you can dress like something like whatever his choice of words. I mean, it's the same, and it always struck me as so comical. And that's the things. Circling back to education, you pay attention to what people say. You educate yourself. That was, I mean, he was just kind of busting my chops a little bit in a good-hearted way, right? Yeah. And which is, listen, I'm a ball buster, so I get it. But the other takeaway there was, I was overdressed all the time. That gave him the fuel for the joke. All right, no, you need to take it back a notch. So it was an education, right? If you listen to what people say, in many instances, what you glean out of a conversation isn't the words used. It's body language, the inflection, the choice of words, commas, you know what I mean? So that always struck me as, okay, Noah, you're going a little too hard in the paint with the full dress regalia.
Well, coming from Todd, I mean, what does he wear? He wears Vans, pair of jeans,
gray,
and a t-shirt. I mean,
right? It
is what it is. Yeah. It works. Yeah. He doesn't get dressed up.
Yeah, he also runs the show.
He does.
I'm just some peasant trying to get loans. Hey guys, give me your business.
Well, you also never know. You could come into the office and get challenged to do pull-ups or push-ups. Or Ryan's even ran a race.
Did you?
I did. I raced Todd, actually.
Who won?
3 times.
Did you win all 3, or did we do a best of 3? Or did he just surreptitiously whoop you and you kept coming back for more?
I think that's the answer there.
She couldn't accept defeat.
Unfortunately, I did not train. I didn't train for a long time. And so I did let him know, hey, I was at a disadvantage. However, I don't think he agreed.
well, you got to have the ego just to, be like, yeah.
Just
It was
the
the training, right? It's just the training. I'm going to whoop that ass, Todd. I'm coming back. I'm getting in the gym. I'm coming back. 24 is my year, right, Ryan?
There you go. Absolutely.
Well, maybe not 24, but,
Yeah, you're going to be a little preoccupied there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have 3 more months in my pregnancy, and then we'll
see where it goes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Get back in the gym.
My, getting back in the gym's the hard part. Because I hurt myself a few years ago, shoulder injury. I used to be 185, like relatively built. Now I'm 150. I haven't weighed 155 since I was like 17. I haven't weighed this weight in like 23 years, right?
Yeah, I'm trending in the opposite direction, so that's a good problem to have.
Oh no, I need to go in that direction. Are you kidding me? I'm drawn. My body lost a bunch of weight after chemo when I wasn't in the gym, and it realizing, you're not getting poisoned anymore. Hey, we're just gonna let all this muscle you worked years on go. I was like, oh great. You look in the mirror, you're like, oh, now I know what Skeletor looks like in the flesh. So I love it. It's a great office atmosphere. I love. If I ran an office, it's very much how I would do it. It's like morale, just because you don't have to be like hyper business. You know what I mean? Like as long as you're getting it done, you gotta spice it up. Like that it breaks up the day a little bit. It's morale driven. I love it. I love that about your office, if I'm being honest. But don't ask me to do pull-ups. I mean, I used to be able to do like 30 or 40. I did. I used to be able to do like 40. Now I don't know, 10 or 15. Let's take it back. If there's a challenger who I know is doing less than 10 pull-ups, you can ask me immediately. I'll say yes.
I'll keep that in mind next time.
Yeah, you are one. I just set myself up for disaster.
Yeah, I think Connor wants to be there.
Disaster. You're gonna get Rufo and they'll be like, yeah, you're fine. No, he's gonna bang out like 20 of them.
He did play football, so.
There it is.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think he could beat you.
I believe it. I'm so out of shape right now. You work so much. It's all routine and work.
Yeah.
It's when you break a routine. Because if I don't work out in the morning, it's not going to happen. I work too late at night, and when you're brain dead, you can be physically exhausted and mentally acute and push yourself to do a lot of things.
Yep.
But if you're mentally exhausted,
you're done.
It's much harder to do it. So for me, it's the routine. I'm trying on it. I want to be like the hashtag 24. It's my year. Yeah, we're doing it. No, listen, I have the best intentions. We'll see if it equals good results. All right. So that's a little bit about that part of it. Now I know. So like you, for example, right? Like, how do you find dress in the industry at the moment? Right? Big bites. Hey, listen.
How do I find?
We need to write in and ask for them to sponsor this video.
We should.
Hey, we mentioned bagel bites like 42 times, guys. Like, come on, throw us a bone. Like, share, whatever.
That'd be pretty sweet.
It would be dope. Yeah. Bagel bites, do it, please.
So back to your question, dressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you wear.
What are you guys seeing on like your side of the equation?
Oh, I started at the Satnick Real Estate about almost 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's different from even then to now. I think this style has went a lot more casual. Kind of, I don't know if you could agree with me on this, but yeah, are there days that the dressed up, and I like to be dressed up more so. However, I think the casual jeans are coming back, and the sneakers, and I don't know, Connor. What's your idea on that?
So, I think comfort is key. Looking nice is great, but I just don't agree with like. I wore a suit to my interview, and Todd makes fun of me all the time for it.
So he razzed you too? All right, at least I know I'm not alone here.
That entire interview, I was drenched in sweat. I was stiff as a board. I mean, especially like being a photographer, I'm always in awkward positions, like trying to get the most out of a room, like stuck in a corner, crawling over things, moving furniture. I think there's a good in between. You can look all right and still get the job done.
I'm showing up to the next closing, in Crocs and an A shirt.
But you have to have the bow tie. You gotta have the bow tie.
I will look so Chippendales, guys. Like it's gonna be like Noah Patterson. He's no longer the mortgage engineer. He's the thunder from down under. It's all for the lulz, folks.
I think it's very similar to how tattoos were looked about like years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think it matters as much as people think it does. I think it's more about if you know what you're talking about and you're good at your job, that's what really matters.
I wholly agree with it. I mean, again, you're young. I'm in a business professional career. That's why I chose to dress, because that's what I saw. That's what I knew. I didn't know any better, right? I'm not recreating the wheel. I'm trying to mimic success. There are plenty of people before me and plenty of people after me who will be equal or more successful, right? That's where I thought. And over time, I think the idea of what the business professional is, it didn't happen overnight, but I think it changed. It really did change. Like you said, if the person you're working with is conveying the confidence you're looking for and they're executing at what they said they were going to do and they're performing for you, it's not as in certain capacities, right? Like, obviously if you're an attorney, and you're going to court, dressing the part is, because that's a respect thing. That is the expectation, right? If I'm going to a formal function, sometimes I'm dressing to the nines, bow tie and up. But I agree. That's why I was kind of curious, because my wife would not say that I have the best fashion sense, and the older I get, the more I tend to agree with her. Babe, I love you. That was all for her, right? Yeah. She doesn't know. I try to let her in on it, like, she doesn't need to know that she's right. She's right more often than I tell. Yeah, you do.
Happy wife, happy life, Noah.
Listen, whoever came up with that.
No,
I mean, listen, she's right more often than I give her credit for. So, but that's what makes a good team, right? A good team in the home front, a good team in the work life. Like, it's all about that. But I agree with you. That's evolved. Even vehicles, right? Like, it was all Cadillacs, Mercedes, BMW. How often now do you see some of the most professionals driving a Jimmy, right?
Yeah.
Or a Jeep.
It's a smart decision.
It just makes sense, right? But even that was a business stigma, right? Mm-hmm. You had to look the part for people to take you seriously. Yeah. And I think part of that's just as communications evolved, right? How much do we do over the phone, text, email, versus in person? You know what I mean? It's a different world. Yeah. And you'd mentioned tattoos. I agree with that. That's why you can't see any of the tattoos that I have. And for anyone who doesn't know, there's about a third of my body that's covered in tattoos. I just got them all done in between here and here, right? Yeah. So you can't see it. And not that I thought that was going to be a problem. It's just, you never know, right?
You don't want to take a chance.
That's exactly right. You never know when I end up in like a high professional environment where that is in fact frowned upon. Right. I don't want to put myself in a position to shortchange myself from any business opportunities. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it also has to do a lot with our area and how kind of laid back and relaxed our area is.
Yeah, I think that's more, yes, for starters, I agree. 100% agree. I think Cape May just has a chill vibe. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's just, if you don't live here, come visit. Look to buy something. It's amazing. Why live anywhere else? It's so great. But being licensed all over, and I'm, again, I mentioned the Lord's blessed me earlier. I've been blessed to make a top producer's, trip for my company, where we travel. And so I get to see a lot of other loan officers, and we have these conversations. The tattoos, the dress, those are all things we discuss. That is just becoming more and more the normal, right? People respect the individual within reason. Obviously, if I show up, to a closing, as I mentioned earlier, wearing Crocs and an A shirt, it would take me doing a hell of a job selling, S is for selling, a hell of a job selling for them to not think that I was just a degenerate.
I agree with that one.
Right? So, I like where, I think it's easier. You mentioned earlier, you said comfort is key. Yeah. The more comfortable, the easier it is to work.
Yeah, I mean, I know if I'm wearing like an uncomfortable outfit, I'm not going to do my job as efficiently and as good as I can. Mm-hmm. If I'm hot and sweaty, I'm going to be rushing. I'm going to make a mistake. Like,
oh yeah, it's a fact. Even when you're buying clothes, I don't know. We were at TJ Maxx or something, my wife and I. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, babe, if you're unsure now, don't buy it. Because if you do, it's going to sit in your closet. And every time you pull it out, you're going to say, I don't know. And then you're going to move to something that you're comfortable with, comfortable in, the whole 9 yards. Like, it's so accurate.
I get as close to a uniform as I can. I have the same pants in every single color. And I get a sweater, and I get it in all different colors.
Wait, really?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
I go to Old Navy, and I'll find one thing that I really like, that's comfortable, that looks nice, every single color.
And that's it.
Mix it up, yep.
I love that. I did that for a few years.
It's easy.
The problem is I hate shopping for clothes. I hate shopping in general.
Yeah.
Like I love to work, guys. I do a lot of that. I don't like to do a lot of other things. I hate shopping. I hate trying on clothes. It's miserable. And I usually am over it very quickly.
And we have it easy.
We do. We really do.
Yeah.
Men's clothes are 10 times easier than women's clothes.
So much simpler. So much simpler. But to be fair, women are much prettier than men are.
Yeah.
So
they care a lot.
Some of that's the clothing. Some of it's just women are prettier by nature.
Yeah.
So the clothing they choose complement. Here's why, right? You see a beautiful woman dressed down, you might think frumpy. Mm-hmm. We're gonna say you find a very attractive, but maybe more on the homely side, dresses up. There's plenty of Hollywood movies that do this exact same shit, right? Women are just prettier than men. So the dress kind of goes with, the general look. I mean, listen, other than certain, I'm sure there are certain groups out there that if I walked up, nobody's going to be like, oh, damn, Noah's pretty. But you walk up, they might say, Ryan's a very pretty individual, right? It's not how it works. Okay.
Yeah. And another thing, if we want to dress up, we have to wear a heel. I'm not saying they're all uncomfortable. However, you guys aren't walking down the... No. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but...
Extracurriculars, right?
Heels versus some Kohans. I would say Kohans
all
over
day.
heels any day.
It's true. It's true. You know, that makes sense. I say women are generally pretty. You do dress the part, right? Man, this is sounding very misogynistic. That is not the direction that I intended for this to sound. I'm just thinking about it as the words are coming out. I'm like, I am going to get some, hate mail. Be like, I mean well, guys, all right?
Still call Noah Patterson.
Yeah, right. Still call me, even if you dress down. Trust me, I'll be right there with you when I'm at my desk. Old Navy sweats, Crocs. Yeah. I hate that I have Crocs, I'm not going to lie. It hurts my soul. My brother just gave me a pair that he got that were too small and they're fur lined, and I'm like, God.
Oh, you had the fur lined
Crocs. Damn it, these things
Connor,
are comfortable.
We gotta rip them.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't knock until you try it. I mean,
do you wear socks?
I do.
Okay.
You have to, because anything, not everything, but fur's one of those, you get a little damp, it starts to get a little funky. I will always wear socks. My wife makes fun of me. She's like, why do you always wear socks with your Crocs? I was like, hey, that rhymes, Mrs. Seuss. But it was like, no, you can't because of that. So yeah. Anyway, that's the apparel conversation. That took a hard left at. Oh boy. So I mean, how did you guys get into this? That's a curiosity of mine. I mean, listen, you can't do what you do unless you practice what you preach, and it's talking about it, getting to know the people, etc. So tell us, tell me, kind of give me the backstory. Give me the dirty details.
Of how we got into podcasting?
All of it.
All of it. Oh.
You can start.
So I would say, let's start with podcasting.
Yeah.
I think it was an idea from Kevin and Zach, two agents from the
Because they do one, right?
Yes.
Kevin and Zach do, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see that. Every once in a while. I watch. Pretty good.
Thanks.
And actually, Connor, I think you would know more about this than I would.
Yeah, so we were kind of trying to figure out a way to get some stuff out there, get some zhuzh on social, not try to be so boring.
I get it.
And it's hard. I mean,
no doubt.
Real estate isn't what I would call one of the most exciting things. I mean,
oh my God, look at that house that just sold. Yes.
Yeah. It's hard to be sexy, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could put heels on a house.
Right.
And I mean, especially with the way things were kind of churning and burning, if we're posting 5-6 solds a week, that's not entertaining. It's hard.
It's the same.
and we have such a tight-knit community around here where we either work closely with these people, we're involved in charitable events, where we see them on a daily basis.
Right.
Like, why not get all these people around that we talk to and we have these great conversations with that other people might find interesting?
I love it.
Why not share them?
I love it. I'm sorry. I mean, for context, I hate using social media. It's not my jam.
It's hard.
It is.
It's a full-time job.
Yeah. Again, shout out to Alyssa. She posts my stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, not even, did you see that one she did over Christmas? Or, what was it? It's the holidays, sugar and spice and mortgage advice. Call Noah Patterson.
That's good.
She posted that for me, and I was like, damn, that is a banger.
That's really good.
And I texted her immediately. I was like, go lady. Yes. It was another one. It's like, do you need a loan officer who slays it for you? Right?
Catchy.
Yeah. It's great. Listen, she's fire. I love it. It's not my jam. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the people who do it well. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not in my being.
Yeah.
Plus, not to change subjects, but the internet can get highly contestable, and I don't abide stupid really well. So I just extricate myself from those scenarios. So I, again, selling myself, don't stick my foot in my mouth, right? It's like when you talk politics, people say, oh, well, what are you? I was like, I'm in sales. I'm whatever you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And most people respect the comedy in that. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I dig it. You were going to say?
I say marketing is like riding a bike and the bike's on fire. You are just constantly coming up with new things and staying above the trends. And sometimes it can be quite tiring, I would say.
I believe it. Like, what would you say was the project that had you like the most worked up?
Project that had, I would say,
or post, or again, I'm not into social media, so
I would say one of our top events, one of our biggest sponsorships, the Escape the Cape.
Oh, that's a huge one.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the biggest marketing campaigns that we've ever worked on and are involved with.
Especially this past year, because you went really big on the marketing for that this past year. I didn't say it to you guys at the time. It wasn't lost on me, and I'm sure it wasn't lost on other people, because you had marketed that event just amazingly.
Thank you. Yeah. And it was, I remember from the first year compared to our last year in 2023, I just think there was such a difference. But you're talking about 2,000 people, plus the people who are, watching the event and everyone who's coming down to the shore. I think it's just a very, very imperative part in our real estate career or the company's career to get involved and get in front of so many people that are from, I think there was California, all over.
Wow.
It's a one-of-a-kind event. I mean,
really is.
Where else can you start a triathlon by jumping off of a ferry? It's pretty cool, and we're lucky enough where our team is on the edge of that boat, guiding them as they're jumping off. The energy is unreal.
It's hype. It's so hype. Like, I was watching the video, and listen, even when I was in the best shape of my life, cardio was still not in my vocabulary. Yep. Like, listen, I'm either gonna get murked or you're gonna run from me, because I hate running. Cardio is not a thing.
Yeah.
My wife did like half marathons and things like that, and so I'd go to some of these. My favorite one, speaking of events like this, was the Disney half marathon. Okay. Yeah. That was so cool. But similar to what you guys did, just the high energy, the music, the dancing, the prep, which I don't know if people put it together, but that is not just for the fun. There is some pragmatism there. Yeah. It's called stretching, folks.
Yes.
The dancing is for the people who didn't think to stretch. But yeah, like that hype, like it sets the tone for the whole rest of the race, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that for you was like your big,
I mean, it's a year-round thing. It starts up about planning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We actually have a meeting, in 2 weeks, I think, to kind of kick it off and
that's
say,
the beginning.
Yeah, and this is the beginning, and it's definitely one of our biggest events and sponsorships we have right now in Desatnik Real Estate. That could change, but I just think the whole day. I mean, we wake up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, it's an early day.
4, yeah, and then
be out there, and your energy's got to be going from the start.
Yeah.
4 a.m. Goodness gracious.
I know.
And that's really the kickoff for the summer. I mean, it's a great way to kick it off. We have that right in June, early June.
And then you do something right after that too. It's not the Escape the Cape, but it's a DeSatnick Foundation event, right?
Like it's called the Around the Cape Paddle.
Okay, that, yeah.
Yes, and that is for the DeSatnick Foundation, and that's also a phenomenal event as well. Chad does a great job, and Todd, and obviously with Chad's accident, he brings in about 150 athletes, I think.
That's huge.
It's a really big event, and it's really cool. To get back to Escape the Cape first, there was a lot of athletes that I wouldn't expect to see.
Really?
As in, I was expecting all like shredded, triathlete, and it's everybody. There's so many older people, which was awesome. There were groups of like older women that were all doing it together. I thought that was cool. And with the foundation paddle, there's so many people that are involved in that community and know of the foundation because they themselves have had spinal cord issues.
Oh, wow.
And now they're out there paddling, or their dad's paddling for them, and being able to see that and see that community, it's one of
awesome.
A kind. It's really
meaningful.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Meaningful is such a perfect word. Like such a perfect word for that. I love that. I don't know. I've always got all kinds of ideas. I am a member of the Cape May Kiwanis. And they do a lot of charity things, and I'm in the process of coordinating with a friend of mine, local chef, Josh Lewak, and we're trying to put together, it's a concept at this point, right? Like, we have like the food closet and the feeding your neighbors and things like that. Well, he's a chef, and the idea was to periodically get more gourmet meals out for those people, right? Like, just eating's one thing, eating well is another, and then eating delicious food that you may not otherwise be able to afford. I think it's just a blessing. You know what I mean? So that was kind of one of the dynamics that we were trying to maybe marry up with the Kiwanis, because we do have like a commercial style kitchen. That way we can kind of do prep and everything like in-house. So it starts with an idea or a spark, as it says. Was that Disney? Something, the imagination, right? Favorite Disney character, Figment. There it is. Anyway, but yeah, so I think the charity stuff is big. Like, you got to give back. Like, we are all blessed in so many capacities, right? It's when you can, where you can, And
doing things like that really make you realize how blessed you really are.
Yes.
I mean, especially like you're down in a rut, and then you see that person that 3 years ago wasn't walking, and now they're paddling, and I could never do that paddle.
Oh yeah.
Like,
nope.
It changes your outlook on everything.
And the adversity at which Chad's a perfect example, right?
Yes.
Like the adversity that others go through, it is wild to me. I think that there are so many people that aren't at least open to being aware of the plight of other individuals. It's whether it's intentional or subconscious, or unintentional, like just the whole focus on self. Selflessness is one of the biggest gifts you can give anyone, right? In any capacity, time, economics, monetary, and so it's one of the reasons I've been a huge fan of you guys for a long time, because you guys were always nice to me, bringing things full circle. When I rolled in and was like, hey guys, use me, I'm local, I'm great. I mean, I'm saying I'm great. It was like, I'd like to show you that I'm great, please. To seeing all of that, you guys being nice to me, like seeing what you like, it's just such a, I don't know. I don't think there's enough of a pay it forward mentality, just in general. Yeah. I think unfortunately there's just a lot of instances where, you hear about I'm on the corporate bandwagon, right? Like, you got to grind it out. I got to fight for what's mine. Well, everything that you got, you didn't necessarily have to get, like, you know what I mean? Right. Like, it's all a blessing, right?
It is.
Every loan that I write, every referral that I get, every contact that I make, every single aspect of that is a blessing, because it allows me to eat, it allows me to have food on my table. Help people where you can, please. Yeah. If anybody's out there, support the foundations. Like, I don't even care if they're these ones. Obviously, I'd love, if you checked out the DeSatnick Foundation and the other stuff that they do, but just find a charity, find something that speaks to you. do what you can with it. You know what I mean? I think it's, especially where not getting into politics, but just in general, the divisiveness of the country. I mean, a little bit of love for everybody's not going to hurt a damn thing, right?
And we appreciate that because, our broker Todd, he always says, yeah, I mean, real estate matters. It pays the bills, it does the job, but that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
It really doesn't.
No.
It's
the health. It's the, hey, you're able to go home under a roof. You can eat tonight, and you're healthy, right?
And feel good because outside of the sort of economic disposition of certain households and things like that, do you think most individuals under those circumstances aren't there by choice, right? Do you think they don't know that? Do you think they want a reminder every? You know what I mean? It's like we all have different circumstances. Just be decent human beings. Yeah. Jesus,
just be nice.
I'm sorry, it's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
It's easy to turn a blind eye and not pay attention, but it's there and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It takes more energy to be mean. Or
I think so.
A lot more than to just be nice and say, hey, listen, no, your shirt looks great today.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. I love that design.
That's it. Right. Like, it's just the little stuff, right? And it's so funny. So all you did was compliment my shirt. It could be as little as you Connor, you see, she just, she looks down, right? Just walk up and say, hey, you all right? You all right. Sometimes it's just people not feeling alone, I can't tell you how many times. Oh boy, we got stories, man. For context, I am religious. I am a human, like everybody else. So you might see me cursing and drinking and swearing and the whole. I'm human, folks. But I am religious. So let's start off there. I was in college and I had a feeling that I needed to talk to somebody. I was at the mall. I went to 2 different colleges at the same time. So I did morning classes at one, evening classes at the other. I did archery in the middle and would go to the Hamilton Mall for lunch. They had a baller food court, if memory serves me correctly. Their sushi was, which is weird to say about a mall sushi place, but this stuff was great. Anyway, so I was walking around. And I just had, this was such an odd feeling. You just got to talk to this girl. And I'm like, wait, come on. And I'm used to listening to my feelings about something, right? I mean, this is gonna sound very stalkery. Like, I was worrying with whether to say something to her for like a half hour. So I'm like. I don't know. Call a spade a spade. I'm trailing this. I mean, I don't want to say stalking. I was trailing this gal, and finally I built up the courage, and I just said, "Listen, you don't know me. I've never seen you to my knowledge in my life. I just felt like I needed to say hello. Is everything all right?" She broke down crying. She said, "I was walking around the mall, debating on whether or not to kill myself."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've only spoken to her once, that one day. No idea what happened. Just, it was a feeling. I acted on it, and there was no harm. Like, what is she going to say? Oh, who are you? I'm like, oh, she's like, oh, everything's all right. Okay. I created an opportunity, right? Just be conscious of the people around you. You know what I mean?
Which, again, it's easy to walk by and not even notice that person and never remember them or have any idea.
Absolutely.
You just don't know what someone's going through. You have no idea.
And that, you're so accurate. Even in work, right? Like, there are moments that somebody may react a certain way, and I just want to jump down their throat because I don't take.
Right. You don't tolerate.
I mean, you have to at certain points in time, but there's certain things that just don't sit well with me. And then I would just start to get heated, and blah 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 blah. And again, post chemo, like the chemo rage was kind of a thing. So I had to change how I did certain things. You don't know. Truth of the matter is, it could be your coworker. And you might say, "Oh, I hate that person." But why? Because they were really mean to you once. Yep. Listen. Granted, some people are just assholes. All right, it's a fact. But you don't know, like maybe their dog died or their grandmother. Like I had one of the worst days of my life when I had to put my dog down. Kale, he was my guy, almost 14 years old, just my man, right? Like if I was at my office desk, he's sitting on the floor. Like he was my guy. Had to put him down. I had we were talking about things kind of being fluid in the loan process. I had a very unique thing happen that same day. The last thing I wanted to do was work. I just wanted to grieve, right? Just wanted to grieve. And I think I handled something really I wasn't at my best. We'll put it that way. And I realized, a mea culpa is necessary occasionally, when it's right. So I reached out to the person and, I talked to them the next day. I was like, hey, here's what's going on. I'm sorry, right? I was out of line. And they were like, hey, I got it. I didn't know what was going on, but it was so out of character for you. Like that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And unfortunately, the life isn't.
But people expect us to be.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yep. In everything. Work, life, family. We are not perfect, folks. No. Give somebody the benefit of the friggin' doubt. Yep. I mean, like, I might say, hey, can you send me those pay stubs? You're like, no, I already sent them to you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm human. Right? Like, listen, you do pretty good about not asking for double duty, but we're all human. It happens.
It's a balance. It's hard.
It very much is a balance, yeah. So and this is why I love riffing, but I don't know where our original topic was.
I know.
Not sure, but we can kind of close up here, and
I dig it.
If you want to kind of give the listeners where they can find your information.
Yeah, you go online, use the good old interwebs. I think that's the correct, we're not going to get sued word. The interwebs, www.noahdkmc, dog, kilo, Mary, cat. .com. It's my website. Google Noah Patterson, Draper and Kramer Mortgage. That's there. Cell phone 302-379-2359. 7-day-a-week kind of guy, Even if you want to just pick my brain, that's where it starts. Just like this, it's a conversation, and then you build from there. Create the comfort level, find the goals, meet the goals, have some laughs along the way.
Yeah.
Well,
sounds good.
Thanks so much, for coming on our podcast.
Thank you for having me. I love it. I listen. This is it check the box for me, guys. When Connor says, "Hey, I want to be on a podcast," I did my best to not go.
Yeah, and I mean, as we continue to keep going, I hope you'd be willing to come back on. So
I love it. I know, I intended to have an appraiser on today. She got jammed up with the rush order, but I'd love to have her kind of talk on some stuff. My team, I'd love to have Alyssa, on here, just kind of walk through a little bit of the team aspect. Like, you hear the word, what does it actually mean? You know what I mean? Listen, even if you wanted to say, hey, how about them Eagles? I'd be like, listen, coaching staff, come on, folks. Like, please, if you want me to buy another 400 shirts from Caltex, get your shit together.
They gotta step it up.
Right? Like, come on.
So real quick, I want to know your score prediction for Monday night.
So, you know how you don't get into politics or religion? When you're a Phillies fan, you don't jinx the game. I'm going to keep that to myself.
I like that. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you guys for having me. Be well, everybody. Much success, and hopefully I'm talking to you again in the near future.